Hello, in this video, I am going to take a journey towards predictive project management. First of all, when we talk about the PMP certification exam, PMI is now focusing on project manager rather than the project management itself. When I talk about the project manager, it means I'm talking about how well project manager understand and relate the project with strategy and business environment, how project manager selects the processes and tools and techniques to implement the project, and how project manager actually possesses the or practice the power skills to lead the project with their team. So when we understand this perspective, another important element is that now when you talk about project management, we can do project by doing the predictive project and also by leading the adaptive project. So as a project manager, I'm not going to say that I am PMP certified and going to focus only on predictive project. As a project manager, I can manage both predictive and adaptive, even hybrid projects. In this video, I'm going to talk about predictive project management. For adaptive project management, you can see my other video. But here, when we talk about the predictive project management, first of all, we need to understand that PMI we typically see projects from the triple constraint perspective, where we talk about scope, time, and cost. Generally, now I call them as a prisoner of triple constraints, because we were not looking at the project beyond these three constraints. But as I see what is happening right now, when we have tight economy, we have high competition, and innovation and disruption is all around us, then we don't need to see project only from the perspective of scope, time, and cost. We also need to see project from the perspective of strategy, project from the perspective of complexity, and project from the perspective of stakeholder engagement. When we add these three parameters, it changes the whole world. When we talk about the PMP certification, PMI is also focusing that how as a project manager we are going to manage the three aspects other than the technical aspects, and these are now PMI talent triangle is being redefined, and we talked about business management, process and technical management, and power skills. So that's how we are going to lead the project, and we are going to be tested in the PMP exam. So when I talk about the overall perspective, first of all, we need to understand what is the business context. When we talk about the context of the business, it means that now from the CEO perspective, from the board management perspective, organizations are facing two key challenges. Number one challenge is sustainability, that how long we are going to run our organization. And the second is the growth challenge. When I say growth challenge, what is the industry average growth rate? So let's suppose if I am in technology company, my industry average growth rate is, let's say, 15%. If I am in telecom sector, my industry growth rate is 6%. If I am in construction, my industry growth rate is 3%. Although these numbers are not real, but I'm just giving you the perspective. So you need to see what is your organization growth rate and where your organization stands. When we understand these two challenges, we need to understand why typically an organization is facing these challenges. So organization, when they talk about the challenges or the causes of challenges, they say that we have a lot of competition right now. Previously, starting up a company was a difficult endeavor. Now entry is easy. Second is innovation. People are bringing new products or doing the old work in a new way. So that could be innovation perspective. Regulatory requirements are changing. So these three core factors, competition, innovation, and regulatory requirements, are making it difficult for organizations to sustain and grow. But when I see the real cause of challenges, I understand that it's all about uncertainty. And unfortunately, organizations don't have the skill or capability to navigate in an uncertain environment. If organization needs to navigate in an uncertain environment, they need to become an ambidextrous organization. When I say ambidextrous organization, it means how a management is balancing their present and future. So when you can balance your both present and future, then you can become a true ambidextrous organization. And when I say balance present and future, it means that how you run your core business and exploit more value generate more revenue, generate more profit from doing the business that you are doing right now. But at the same time, how you build a new business, how you transform the market so that you can grow and build your future or secure your future. Rather than being disrupted, you should be the disruptor. Once we understand the organization challenges, causes and cure, it's very important to see how organization align its vision, mission and strategy. First of all, when we talk about vision means picture of future. Vision means where we want to see ourselves. So vision is not something that we talk about our roadmap, our timeline, our activities, our actions. The vision is all about, you can say, our aspirations. So when I talk about the vision of my company AUC, I would say our vision is to be the global provider of change agents. So I'm not saying how I'm going to provide change agents, how many changes I'm going to provide, what are the criteria of doing it. I'm just saying that whenever somebody says that AUC, then they will say that they are the global provider of change agents. So that's how I define the vision. Another important element is that generally people confuse vision with mission. Mission is also not the way to achieve the vision. Mission is not about action in terms of the deadline, in terms of the roadmap. Mission means why you exist. Mission means what you do. So when I talk about the vision of my company, it says that we want to enable people for their potential growth through our education, our engagement, our inspiration. So what we do, we provide education, we engage for consulting and coaching, and we inspire people from our action so that they can achieve more. So that's how we define our mission statement. It does not talk about how we are going to do that, what is the performance criteria, how many educations we need to perform, how many engagements we need to perform. It's just about what we do, why we exist. Then strategy. Strategy is interestingly a very interesting component, because lots of people, when they talk about strategy, they talk about fancy English words. But if I look at strategy in a simple term, I would say in one word, strategy means winning. How you are going to win in the corporate world. It's not a game of football or cricket where you can say that one team is winning and another is losing. But when we talk about the concept of winning, it means that when you know how you are going to generate more revenue, how many customers you have, what is your profitability, how long you are going to stay in the business or the market. So when you understand that thing, it means that for strategy to work, from a basic term, we can say that strategy helps us to achieve our vision by doing mission. But technically it's all about what kind of decisions we are making. So if I have to define strategy in more, I would say, advanced term, more realistic term, then I would say strategy is to make decisions to win now and in future. So, and these decisions will be helping me to define what are my choices. So strategy is all about choices, that what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. So strategy is not an option that I can try that or this or that. No, it's all about the choices. Once we understand the difference between the vision, mission and strategy, that we can align them. And more importantly, we need to align our strategy, or we need to design our strategy in a way that it should support both our present business or our core business and our future business, so that we understand that what we are doing now, how we are going to compete now, and what are the areas where we need to test our hypothesis or experiment for our future business. Once we understand that thing, then the third important element that is also very important in this context is portfolio management. Portfolio management is a bridge between strategy and execution. Interestingly, data says that every year globally, organization spends around $160 billion for developing these strategies. But if you look at the data that how many organizations actually achieve their strategy, it is around 30 to 40%. It means that strategy is not bad, strategy execution is not good. So we need a bridge who can connect the strategy with execution, and that bridge is portfolio management. And to do that thing, portfolio management perform three functions: selection of initiatives based on a strategy, prioritization or balancing of initiatives based on company capability, capacity and risk, and number third is the alignment of resources across the portfolio initiatives. So these are the three key functions that help portfolio manager to align the strategy with the execution. And this is also helpful to project manager, that how he or she is going to understand the priority of projects and negotiate the project delivery throughout the project. So these are the key aspects that we need to look into it. Once, as a project manager, we understand the organization challenges, cure and causes, we understand the alignment, vision, mission and strategy, and we understand that how portfolio plays a role in project priority. Then the next important element is to understand that what is our initiative. And one of the key things is that when we see the organization, somehow every initiative in organization is termed as project. Not all initiatives are project. Some of the initiative will be projects, some of the initiative will be simple tasks, and some of the initiative will be programs. So we need to see how we are differentiating between them. When we talk about project, one of the key elements is that project is temporary. When I say temporary, it means that we have a certainty that when the project is going to be finished. The other element is that projects are temporary and they were undertaken to create unique. But when we see unique, we are not seeing unique from the perspective of dictionary, where it means something new, something different, radical, breakthrough that has not been done previously. Here the unique means variables are same, variable values are different. So if I am doing the construction of bridges, and one bridge I made in Karachi and let's say one bridge I made in Lahore, so I would say location is a variable, but that variable value is changed in both the cases. I would say the length of the bridge is, let's suppose, one variable, but the length of the Karachi bridge is 2 km and length of the Lahore bridge is 1 km. So you see, variables are same but variable values are different. That's make the project unique. Then the third element is we are doing the projects to achieve product, service and result. One of the key elements where most of organizations are struggling is that when they call it a project, they held accountable the project manager and project team for the ROI, for the business reality. But actually project manager are only responsible for the delivery of the product, service and result. Once they are developing these things, once they develop the function, feature, assets, which is termed as product, service and result, then these things will be handed over, transition to the business, customer and user, and they are responsible to generate the value of the project product or generate the ROI of the project. So we need to understand that as a project manager, what is our responsibility. So in this case, I must say that we need to understand the difference between project business objectives versus product business objectives. When I talk about the project business objectives, it means that every project has a business objective. Let's suppose if I am implementing a CRM, my business objective is to increase the sale. So increasing the sale is the project business objective. But when I talk about project product objective, so in the context of project product objective, my objective is to build a product which has lead capture facility, lead tracking facility, lead messaging facility, customer integration facility. So these are the project product objective, and basically the project and project management team are responsible for project product objectives, not the project business objectives, because business objectives will be realized by the customer, business and the end users. Once we understand this thing, then we can also understand that not all activities and tasks are projects. Some of the tasks are part of the project. Let's suppose to develop a project, I need to hire some resources, I need to procure some hardware, I need to perform some quality, I need to engage for traveling and other stuff. So we need people from administration, from finance, from HR, and these are the people who are going to help us to do the job, but they are the ones who are performing the project task. These tasks are not project activities, or not they are separate projects. So we need to understand what type of activity we are performing. Is this activity qualified to be a project or not, or is it just the part of a project? Finally, when we talk about program, one of the biggest mistake that I see around the world is that when we talk about program, we see that program is a collection of related projects. So here we are not going to talk about multiple projects, like multiple projects of a department, multiple projects for one client, multiple projects for one sector. Actually, when we talk about program, it means to achieve benefits. Benefit means business value. So projects are temporary, programs are temporary, projects are unique, programs are unique, but projects helps to achieve the product objective, right? But when you talk about the program, it helps to achieve the business objective within a estimated time or within a given timeline. So technically benefits are values that we are going to realize. So as a program manager, I am doing multiple projects and running the operations of the program so that I can achieve the ROI or the business case value of the program. So that's how we differentiate the project versus program. Ideally, when a company is going for digital transformation, change management, merger and acquisition, adoption of a new technology, launching of a new product, expansion into new country or a new city, all these initiatives should run as a program rather than a project. Once we understand that what is our initiative and we understand and differentiate the project versus task versus program, then we need to see how a project is going to be initiated. When we talk about the initiation means decision, initiation means authorization. So ideally, project initiation or authorization is actually being done by the management. So you can say that technically project manager has no role in project initiation. In fact, project manager is an output of project initiation. When I say that project initiation is all about decision, so basically management makes two decisions. Number one decision is that are we going for this project or not, and number two decision is that who will be the project manager. Once they make this decision, then they announce it by publishing the project charter. Generally, management perform the activities to make a decision about project. These activities are typically reviewing the enterprise environmental factor, means market condition, government regulation, customer requirements or customer work authorization system. Second is organizational process asset, how we do the project, what is our previous experience and what is our strategy. Number third is the project scope, which is available in the form of business case, statement of work, contract, feasibility study, business vision document, business vision document, note sheet, concept paper. So these are the documents that we had available before initiating the project, and management is going to make a decision based on these documents or any of these documents. Once management is going to review the enterprise environmental factors, organizational process assets and project scope statement, then can also review the project constraints, which could be timeline, which could be scope, which could be the cost. We need to see that what are the constraints that management is taking for the decision making of a project. Once they have reviewed it, they may go for the financial selection criteria if they don't have a project input from business case or feasibility, so they can go for net present value calculation or IRR calculation or ROI calculation or payback calculation or cost benefit analysis calculation. So these calculations help them to see the financial value or viability of a project in the longer run, and based on these steps a management can make a decision about a project. Once the decision has been made, the next step is to publish the project charter. One of the key component is that project charter is a management document. Project charter is given by management to project manager. So you can say that project charter is an appointment letter of a project manager. So project manager ideally don't write the project charter, but mostly management, when they make a decision, they say to the project manager that please write your own appointment letter and then we will sign it to you for you. So that's how we understand the concept of a project charter. Once project manager got the charter, one of the key element is that he or she needs to understand the project life cycle. When we talk about project life cycle means what are start and end of our phases, what are critical phases that we are going to look into it, what are deliverables in each phases, and what are the risk in each deliverables. When we understand the start and end of our project, understand the phases, their deliverables and risk, it will be easier for us to plan, execute and control the project. One of the unfortunate element is that generally people think that project phases are initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, controlling and closing. Unfortunately, these are not project life cycle phases. These are process groups. These process groups help us to execute the project life cycle. When we talk about project life cycle phases, they are specific to industry, they are specific to project. Let's say if I talk about the IT project, I would say analyze, design, develop, test and deploy. If I talk about a construction project, I would say site survey, site design, procurement, construction, commissioning and closure. So these are the project phases. Process groups, initiation, planning, execution, controlling, closing, helps us to achieve our project or execute our project phases. Once we understand these things, now we need to understand that generally we have two types of project life cycles. One is predictive life cycle and the other one is adaptive life cycle. When you talk about a predictive life cycle, it means that the project scope can be defined in early stages or phases of the project, and rest of the project will follow the guidelines. But when you talk about the adaptive project, we agree that during the project execution we will have lots of changes and we will be accommodating the changes even at the last stage. So that is why when we do the predictive project, we freeze the scope. But when we do the adaptive project, we freeze the time. So that's how we look at the difference between predictive and adaptive project. We need to understand that we can use multiple tools or templates or frameworks to decide that which project will be required to use through or execute through predictive project, adaptive project or hybrid project. I generally use CAT model developed by Harvey Miller, which is complexity assessment tool, that what are our complexities, and based on 3 types of complexities recommended by Harvey Miller: structural complexity, socio-political complexity and emergent complexity, we can make a decision about the project life cycle. Once we understand that what could be our project life cycle, we also need to understand that what is our position, or you can say value in a project. Most of the time we are going to be referred as the project manager, but what is project manager responsibility, accountability and authority? Most of the time we are responsible to deliver the project, we are accountable for the success and failure of the project, but we don't have authority to utilize the organization resources or assign the resources based on the project demand. And we need to engage with multiple department resources, those who are going to provide their resources based on their commitments and operational expectations. So this is where we have lot of dependencies. When we need to understand that thing, we need to understand what is our project or what is our organization structure and what flexibility and authority we got from the organization structure. Irrespective of our visiting card and designation, organization structure help us to identify our true value. When I talk about the organization structure, one of the organization structure is functional organization structure. Functional organization structure is for simple organization which has 1 or 2 core businesses, and they have a specific department like sales, like marketing, like IT, like finance, like operation, and every department has their specific resources. Those who know that if I'm in sales, what is my career, I will start as beginner sales guy, then assistant sales manager, maybe sales manager, maybe head of the sales. So these are my clear career path, and I know I will be moving along in this path. But when we are going to do a project, we need to engage multiple departmental resources. Unfortunately, let's suppose if I'm in operations department and I'm leading a project, I have the authority over the resources who are in my operation departments. If I need resources from IT or operations or finance or marketing or sales or admin or procurement, these resources will say that I need to talk to my boss or I need to talk to their boss so that they can give their engagement. So technically, when you are working in a functional organization structure as a project manager, you are mostly expediter, and you have to rely on your functional manager to communicate and give you the resources. On the other hand, if I look at the projectized organization structure, in a projectized organization structure, project manager has full authority. He or she is making the decision about project resources and project funds. When we look at the organization structures, when we combine functional and projectized organization structure, we have third type of organization structure, which is matrix organization structure. And matrix organization structure can be further decomposed into weak matrix, balanced matrix and strong matrix. So we have 2 extreme oppositions. One is functional, one is projectized, and in between them we have weak matrix, which is more aligned towards the functional organization. And in the weak matrix, project manager is also part-time, but he or she has the power over coordination of multiple resources. Balanced matrix, where project manager is full-time and resource is officially reporting to project manager, but as well as their functional manager. So you can say that the resources has 2 bosses. And then we have a strong matrix organization, which is more related to projectized organization, where project manager is full-time and the resource is dedicated towards the project, and they are not doing other activities based on the organization demand. So they are only focusing on the project activities. So these are the organization structures, and we need to see what type of organization we have and what kind of competency I need to use to deliver the project. Finally, when we talk about the organization structure, we need to understand that PMO, project management office plays a vital role. Ideally, PMO means central service provider. PMO provides project management related function, but we need to see at what level we are implementing a PMO. We can implement PO under CEO, we can implement PO under the organization, we can implement PO under the department, we can implement PO under the project. So we need to understand that what is the location of a PMO and what benefit we want to generate for PMO. Let's suppose if we want to have a PMO under the CEO, we need to know the overall status of our portfolio and we want to see the prioritization of projects. That's it. When we talk about a PMO under the organization, actually we want to have a standardization of project management policy, procedures and guidelines, or we may need the centralization of project delivery. When we talk about PMO under the department, it means we want to make sure the delivery of projects that the department is responsible, and more importantly, we need to track the resource utilization, that how many resources are available, what is our average resource utilization, how many hours or months or weeks a resource works, and how many projects a resource typically works in a special time. So these are the impact, or these are the values that we calculate and see when we are leading the PMO within a department. We can also use a PMO within a project or program, which is a temporary, as projects and programs are temporary, and that PMO job is to support project and program manager throughout the project and program. So we need to understand that what is the location of a PMO, what is the benefit of a PMO we are generating, and what functions we can use in a PMO. So PMO can perform up to around 26 functions, but we may need 5, 6, 7 or 10 functions based on the project need or PMO need. Once we understand that what kind of a support or value PMO is generating, we can also look for their support in our projects. Based on these factors and understanding that how do we design the project lifecycle, now it's time to talk about how do we execute the project. When we talk about executing the project, one of the key problems that we see in the project is that as we look at the project lifecycle based on planning, execution, monitoring, controlling and closing, we miss the main aspect, and the missing element in project management is unfortunately project management. When you got a project, when management initiates the project, the next phase is not analysis, not design, not planning. Actually, it is project management. So basically, we do project management throughout the project. But I define, one checkpoint during the life of a project. The project checkpoint is that once we got the charter, we start the project management phase, and based on the available understanding, based on the available constraints, we review or validate our plan. In that perspective, when we say that we review and validate our project plan, we talk about the kick-off meeting. And before going into the kick-off meeting, we review the scope that is already available. We decompose the scope into activities or project schedule or schedule baseline. We estimate the resources, we estimate the cost, we anticipate, identify and identify and plan the responses of the risk. We develop our stakeholder management plan, communication management plan, quality management plan, procurement management plan, so that the way we are going to execute the project. All these information are going to be part of project management plan, which is actually a process document which talks about process like requirement management plan, scope management plan, schedule management plan, cost management plan, human resource management plan, quality management plan, procurement management plan, stakeholder management plan. So these documents guide project manager that how he or she is going to lead the project. On the other hand, the project management plan also contains scope baseline, schedule baseline and cost baseline. These are the benchmarking for the project that we have developed for our project, and we will execute the project based on baselines, and we will also monitor the project based on the baselines. So during the kickoff meeting, we present these project management plan documents and concepts, and based on the approval and go ahead, we go and execute our first technical and development phase. For IT, it could be analysis; for construction, it could be site survey. So once we understand that we need to start the project management phase, so we need to perform project management. So once we understand that we need to perform project management, the first element is to decompose our project scope into work breakdown structure. When we talk about developing a WBS does not contain any activity. I said it multiple times and I had a lot of debates and discussions about it. So WBS is a deliverable oriented document. WBS deliverables are project deliverable, product deliverable and project management deliverable. When we talk about the WBS, we decompose bigger deliverable into smaller deliverable. Let's say project into phases, phases into deliverable, deliverable into smaller deliverable. When we reach to a point where we feel that it is a deliverable that we can manage, assign and control, we call that last deliverable work package. Mind you that work packages are not activities. Work packages are also deliverables, but these are the lowest level of deliverable in work breakdown structure. Once we understand that we have a WBS diagram which is divided or decomposed up to WBS, then we go and develop a separate document. That separate document is referred as activity list. We develop activity list by decomposing the WBS work packages into activities. So technically in the WBS diagram we decompose deliverable into deliverable, but when we talk about activity list we decompose WBS deliverable into activities. Activities are the action items on which we identify or assign time, cost and resources. Generally we have two types of activities. One activity on which we assign time, cost and resources, and the other activities are milestone activities. Milestone activities are for tracking the overall progress and seeing where we stand. Generally milestones are being set based on the customer requirement or management requirement. Milestone can be achievement of project, can be achievement of phase, can be achievement of a specific deliverable or work package. So it's very important to identify what are our significant events in a project plan in the form of milestones. Once we identify our activities and develop the milestone list, the next thing is to sequence the project activities. When we are going to sequencing the project activities, it will help us to identify what is our project duration, because our project duration is not the sum of all activities duration. Project duration is the sum of critical path activities, which I will discuss later. Basically, network diagram, which is the output of sequence diagram, will help us to see what are our critical activities. When we are going to develop the network diagram, we need to see what is the logic of activities and what is the logic of dependencies among the activities, and we call them dependency determination. Mandatory dependency, which is referred as hard logic, means that we have a dependency because of natural or contractual requirement. Discretional dependency, which is also referred as soft logic, based on best practices. External dependency, we are dependent on some other active organizations outside the organization to do the job. And internal dependency, that we are dependent on someone internally in organization. Once we understand the logic of defining the dependency, then we go and set the task dependency type that most of you are aware of. These are finish to start dependency, start to start dependency, start to finish dependency, and start to finish dependency. Based on setting of these dependencies, we will come up to our overall network diagram. If I am developing the whole project network diagram, it will be referred as project network diagram. If I am developing for a phase or part, it will be referred as fragmented or sub-network diagram. Ideally, when we talk about the sequencing, we also need to look at the lag and lead time. Lag, please, is not the delay time. Lag is a waiting time between two activities that we plan based on external dependencies. When you talk about lead time means how early we can start a plan activity before its planned start date. Once we understand these things and factor lag and lead, we will know that what is overall, the network diagram we have. Based on these, we go and estimate the resources. First of all, when we talk about estimation, we have to understand estimation types and estimation techniques. Estimation type means how accurate our estimation is and what is the range of estimation we are talking about. So first is ROM, rough order magnitude. When you talk about ROM means minus 25 to plus 75%. So if I'm going to say that my project is going to take $1 million, it means that it can go and implement with 0.75 million to 17.5, right? That's how we talk about the overall range. The second range is budgetary, means minus 10% to plus 25%, and third one is definitive, means minus 5 to 10%. So based on these ranges, we can talk about that how much information of the project scope we have and how much confident we are in terms of our resource estimation, duration estimation and cost estimation. When we talk about doing the estimation, we have some tools or techniques that we can use to estimate. One of the technique we have is top down estimation, which is also referred as analogous estimation, means that we have done this activity previously and we know that we will be able to do it the same activity within the same time or same cost or same number of resources. The second type of technique is the bottom up estimation. Bottom up estimation is also referred as ABC estimation. ABC estimation is more accurate. We calculate the estimation based on the eventualities and its exact scope, but it takes a lot of time to reach that thing. Then the third type of estimation is parametric estimation. Parametric estimation means that we have previous understanding, previous data, and based on previous data and current workload, we are using the parametric estimation. So let's suppose we painted this room previously in 2 days. Now I have similar size 10 rooms. It means I need to do that painting in 20 days. But previously I have 2 people, now I have 6 people. So I can devise a formula which will see what is our previous experience, previous calculation criteria, and based on that we are going to come up with the new estimate. Then the fourth is 3-point estimate, which is also known as PERT estimate. The PERT estimate was developed by US Navy when they were developing a torpedo missile, and you can't tell about that when exactly you will be able to do that. So when you have an uncertainty, you can use the 3-point estimate, and 3-point estimate use 3 key variables: optimistic, how early we can develop it; pessimistic, what would be the late delivery; optimistic, pessimistic; and third is most likely, or also referred as expected. What are the most likely date we can deliver it? And then we can use 2 formulas of 3-point estimates. One is triangular estimation, when we don't have clarity and highest uncertainty. So the formula would be optimistic plus pessimistic plus most likely divided by 3. On the other hand, if we have some information but still uncertainty, we can go for beta estimation, that is optimistic plus pessimistic plus 4 into most likely divided by 6. So based on these tools or based on these techniques like top-down estimation, bottom-up estimation, parametric estimation, and 3-point estimation, we can do the estimation of our activities in terms of duration, in terms of number of resources, in terms of the project cost. When I talk about the project resources can be physical resources like this camera, these 5 lights, 2 laptops, right? Or it could be the resources like I am doing the recording, Mesam is managing it, and Shehroz is doing the editing, and Danish is looking after the overall thing, and Ali is looking for the financial perspective. So all these resources are involved in this project so that we have this video for you. So when we understand the resources, we need to identify how many types of resources we need, and one of the key documents that will help us to identify that thing is resource breakdown structure. Resource breakdown structure help us to identify how many type of resources we may need in a project. So ideally, if you have a strong PMO, that will help you to give you the resource breakdown structure based on your project types. Another important tool or another important template that we can use is project organization chart. Project organization chart helps you to identify how many resources you have, what are their roles and responsibilities within a project. Then another document that you can use for HR management or resource management for a project is responsibility assignment matrix. I call that a political document. When I need to get the work done from multiple internal organizational departments, I can talk about, rather than giving them activities, I will assign them the work packages and see what role they are playing based on RESI chart. RESI means responsible, accountable, consult, and inform. When we understand these perspectives, then we can also use another very strong tool that I use a lot of time is resource histogram. Resource histogram help us to identify how many resources I need, how many type of resources I need, and at what time of a project I need them. So generally when we are developing the resource histogram, I identify the phases of a project and the timeline of a project and see at what phase we need what kind of resources with how much quantity. So that would be a 3-dimensional view of my project utilization resource. Finally, we can also develop a resource management plan. Resource management plan helps me to identify how I'm going to acquire resources, get the work done from resources, release the resources, what kind of a training I'm going to provide, of how I'm going to recognize and reward the resources. So that's how we talk about the resource management plan or human resource management plan. Another key document that sometimes we develop within HR management plan, but recently we take it as a separate, is team charter. Team charter means how team is going to behave in a project, how they are going to make decisions, how they are going to resolve the conflicts and issues among themselves. So based on these understanding, we understand that how many resources we need in a project. Then finally, we need to understand that based on these parameters, we can estimate our duration and cost of a project. Once we have estimation of resources, duration and cost, we can also look for the risk. Risks are important critical factors in a project. When you want to manage the project proactively, it means you need to identify and analyze and develop the response plans of risk. When we talk about risk, mostly we see risk as a negative, but generally as we are doing a long-term project, traditional project, so risk means an uncertain event. So risk can be positive, risk can be negative. Negative risk means loss of injury or threat or loss of injury. But when you talk about positive risk, it means an opportunity. Risks are not issues. Risk means we have uncertainty. It may or may not occur. But when we talk about issue means we are facing it and we have to deliver the project with this issue. And most importantly, risk is not gamble. When you talk about gamble, it's all about luck. But when you talk about risk, it means how you are identifying the eventualities and calculating their impact. First of all, when we talk about the risk management processes, the first process is plan risk management, where we develop the risk management plan. And risk management plan is a process document which helps us to identify that how we are going to identify risk, who is going to identify risk, what is our risk methodology, how do we define the risk, that it is a big risk or a small risk, what are our risk triggers, and what is our risk budget, or most importantly, what is our risk breakdown structure. So what kind of a risk that we generally got in these type of projects. Once we have a strong risk management plan, project manager will work with the team to identify the risk. When I say identify the risk, at that time our job is to list the risk. Our job is not to judge the risk. When I say judge the risk, it means the probability of the risk and the impact of the risk. But here my perspective is that when you are listing down the risk, list as many as risk you can. And when you are talking about risk, one deliverable may have multiple risks, or one risk can occur into multiple deliverables. So we need to list them down. Once we list down our risk, we need to list them in our risk register document. Risk register document we manage and contain and dynamically throughout the project. Once we have listed down the identified risk, the next step is to perform qualitative risk analysis. When I say qualitative risk analysis, means we are subjectively assessing the project risk, that which risk has high priority and which risk has low priority, and at the same time we are also identifying the risk owners who are responsible to resolve the risk. So we can use probability impact matrix to identify and prioritize the risk. Once we have prioritized list of risk, then we can go for perform quantitative risk analysis. Quantitative risk analysis is the objective risk analysis. We work on the prioritized list. We implement sensitivity analysis, Monte Carlo analysis, and expected monetary value to assess the exact value of the risk. Generally, we use expected monetary value to calculate the contingency reserve of a project. When we say contingency reserve, it means known unknown. What are the risks that may occur, but it's not sure that they are going to occur. So based on these aspects, we have a list of risks. Now it's time to develop the risk response plan. When we talk about risk as both positive and negative, so we should have the strategies for negative and positive risk. So when I talk about a negative risk, the strategies we have: avoidance, don't do this job; mitigation, apply some strategies to reduce the impact of risk, like get training, like develop prototype, like get consultant feedback and review. Then the third is the transfer. Transfer means transferring your risk to someone else by paying the premium amount, like you can say buying the insurance and outsourcing the project. When you talk about the positive risk, one of the risk response strategy is exploiting that the risk should occur 100%. Enhancement, we are going to increase the probability of positive risk, and sharing that we cannot do it as an alone, so we need to partner with other companies or other parties to do the project and get the positive side of the risk. Based on these risk response strategies, we develop our preventive and corrective actions, which are termed as plan A. If our plan A is not going to work, we need to develop plan B, which is fallback plan. For God forbid, if our plan A, plan B does not work, we need to see what are the workarounds that we are going to perform, or the risks that we did not identify or which were left and they are occurring now, so we need to do the workaround. Or maybe there were some risks which we have accepted passively. Accepted passively means that we did not develop any response strategy. So when we did not develop any response strategy and we accepted those risks, now they are occurring during the project and we have to do the workaround. We also need to see that there could be a secondary risk. These are the risks that occur in our response plan. So that's how we do the risk management throughout the project. Once we factor the risk element into our estimates, it's time to finalize our schedule baseline and cost baseline. First of all, when we are going to finalizing the schedule and cost baseline, schedule baseline is not a separate document. Schedule baseline is an approved version of project schedule. And to develop a schedule baseline, first of all, I need to review my critical path. When I say critical path does not mean technically critical activities. Critical path has three parts of definition. So the first part of critical path or CP definition is critical path is the longest path in network diagram, which is the earliest time to complete the project and has least amount of float or slack. Once we understand that the project duration is the collection of or sum of critical path activities. So critical path activities are critical because they are making the project duration. If any activity within a critical path is going to get delay, it is going to delay the overall project. So we understand that this is our critical path and our project duration is based on critical path activities. Now we need to see that is this critical path realistic or not, or do we have technical error? One of the technical error is resource over allocation. So that is not possible that right now I'm recording this video and I'm also involved in some other activities. If I am going to be defined in my project schedule in that way, it means it is a clear case of resource over allocation. So if I want to resolve the issue of resource over allocation in a project schedule, that is referred as resource leveling. So maybe I need to reschedule the activities or resequence the activities, or maybe I need to change the resource based on the need of the project. So I need to see what strategy I am going to apply to resolve the issue of resource over allocation. Another tool of resource optimization technique in the context is resource smoothing. Resource smoothing, that when we talk about project, we have critical path activities and non-critical path activities. Non-critical path activities has float time available, that if these activities are going to be delayed, the project is not going to be delayed or the next activity is not going to be delayed. If somehow we want to make sure that our critical path activities completes on time, we can lend the resources or use the resources from non-critical path activities if their skills are matched. So this is how we define the resource smoothing. So let's suppose we develop the project schedule and management needs to complete the project in less time as usual. So we can go and talk about the schedule compression techniques. We have two types of schedule compression techniques. One is crushing. Crushing means reducing the project duration by increasing the working hours, or you can say overtime. And the other option is fast tracking, means making activities parallel or overlap, which were initially defined as in sequence. So these two activities help us to reduce the project duration without impacting the scope and quality. Once I have done the critical path analysis, resource optimization technique and schedule compression techniques, then I can go for the approval and get the approval of my project schedule, which will be after approval referred as schedule baseline. Once we have a schedule baseline, we need to finalize our cost baseline. Technically, once we got the project schedule, once we develop the schedule baseline, we have finalized our estimation. Based on our estimation, we can go and talk about the cost baseline. Cost baseline is actually equal to project estimates plus contingency reserve. Contingency reserves are known as known unknown, and we calculate the overall contingency reserve based on expected monetary value during the quantitative risk analysis step that we just talked about it. So this is the amount, cost baseline is the amount that project manager gets to deliver the project. Then we have project budget, that is the amount that management keeps for delivering the project, and the formula for project budget is cost baseline plus management reserves, and management reserves are referred as unknown or black swans. According to a research by Oxford, the unknowns are very less. In a typical project, the highest number of unknowns occur in IT projects, which is 8%. So you can see that technically the project is late or delay because we don't do we don't do proper risk management. So we need to see what are our risks and how we are going to factoring the impact of our risk in our schedule and cost baseline. Once we develop and finalize our baselines, we go into the kickoff meeting, present our plans, get the blessings of management, and directly go towards the execution of the technical or development phases. Let's suppose if I talk about IT, it's time to start analysis phase and subsequently go for design, development, test and deployment. If I'm talking about construction, it's a time to start site survey, site design, procurement, construction and commissioning. But when the technical teams are doing these things as a project manager, my job is to review the status, my job is to resolve the issues, my job is to mitigate the risk, my job is to manage the changes, my job is to engage stakeholders, my job is to re-baseline if our initial baseline, if our baseline that we presented in kickoff meeting is not going to be implemented or not going to be followed, then we need to talk about re-baselining. First of all, when I'm going to lead the project and perform all these activities, we need to understand what is a leadership. When I talk about leadership means process of inspiration or inspiration. As a leader, my job is to inspire others to be more, achieve more and become more. That's what I want to achieve, right? So in that perspective, when I see the leadership from the perspective of organization, I would say the leadership job is to share the vision or share a common goal and achieve through inspiration. That is the job and role or functionality of a leader. But when I talk about leadership, we need to understand that leadership is not a position, leadership is not a hierarchy, leadership is not an experience. So when we talk about leadership, first of all, when we talk about inspire, we need to inspire ourselves, we need to lead ourselves. And when we are leading ourselves, one of the biggest challenge is that how much focus we keep to achieve our targets. Then when we talk about achieving the focus, we need to achieve 3 skills. We need to build 3 core skills when we are going to lead ourselves. These skills are time goal setting, discipline approach and avoiding the, you can say, procrastination, and focusing on the delivery of time and doing the time management. And the third thing is becoming an emotional intelligent leader, because when you become an emotional intelligent leader, you understand that how to respond in difficult situations, how to deal with difficult people, how to communicate, how to empathize, and how to manage your emotions and other emotions during a tough time or a difficult time. In that way, I would say, you can read Daniel Goleman's book on emotional intelligence, or I must say you can also read Crucial Conversations. So they both will help you to understand this perspective. Then when we are leading the team, the biggest challenge is how we are going to engage them. When we are leading the team, one of the key competency and skill that we need to build is mentoring and coaching. So how we are providing them guidance and mentoring about general topics, general concepts, and how we are coaching them to achieve their project targets. Another important key skill is that how we are resolving the conflict among team members. Conflicts are inevitable in teams, and we need to see that what is the source of conflict. So generally the source of conflicts in projects are tight schedules, cost, resource capability and availability, admin support, priority of a project, and teamwork style and behaviors. When we talk about resolving the conflict, we need to understand what are conflict resolution techniques. Ideally, we have 5 conflict resolution techniques. if I have to define the conflict management approach from the perspective of concern for myself and concern for others, if I have a concern for myself very high and concern of others is low, then I'm going to use force technique, which means, I am talking about win-lose. I want this thing to be done, I don't care about you. If I'm talking about that I don't have value of conflict and I don't have a concern for myself in this situation, it's very low, and I also don't have concern for you, then I'm going to avoid the conflict, right? So that is the avoidance. When I have concern for you high and concern for myself less, then I'm going to talk about smoothing. Smoothing means finding the areas where we both have common agreement and not discussing the disagreement areas. When we talk about balancing both, we can go for compromise, where I'm going to leave some of my parts and you are leaving some of your part. That is also referred as lose-lose approach. And then we have a perfect combination, which is problem solution approach and collaboration approach of conflict management, where we are going to talk about win-win solution. So we need to see in the given situation which specific conflict management resolution technique I need to apply and resolve the conflict so that the team disagreement is resolved and productivity should increase. We should use conflict concepts to increase or to become more innovative rather than decrease the productivity. Another key element is to see how we are going to measure the performance of the team. So we need to define the performance criteria of individual, performance criteria of a team, and we need to define the recognition and reward criteria so the team can work towards the achievement of goal and we can hold them accountable for their performance metrics. Then if I'm going to see leadership, I can also see leadership at a department level, where my core challenge is alignment of my department with organization strategy. In that perspective, the three key skills that I must have are strategic thinking skills, to understand what is the internal factors and what are external factors and how I'm going to respond and react and act based on these factors. Then negotiation, how I'm going to negotiate the value of my department, my people and organization value, and how I'm going to solve the problem. As a department head, it does not mean that I have all the answers of the problems. It means that I am grown to a level where I can resolve the problem by asking the right questions rather than giving the right answers. When I talk about leading at an organization level as a CEO, one of the key challenges is to set the organization direction. When we are talking about setting the organization direction, one of the key skills is change management. Other skill is how I go and influence and inspire people rather than penalize the people for achieving the change. And then the third thing is, which is very important, is how I am going to make decisions, because indecision is a bigger sin than no decision, than a wrong decision, sorry. So I would say indecision or making no decision is a bigger sin than making a wrong decision, because we can write or we can refactor our decision based on the data. Another important thing is that when you talk about leading the global perspective, the biggest challenge is your brand value. So I am recording this video to make my brand more global, more adoptable and more trustworthy in terms of the project management knowledge. So when you talk about the brand, one of the key aspects is that how you define your vision becoming a global, how you understand the political and cultural aspects of the multiple environments, and how you build the trust of your product so that people trust and buy from you and try to engage with you. So these are the leadership challenges that we need to look into it when we are leading ourselves, leading the team, leading the department, leading the company, or leading globally. Another important aspect is that when we understand the team, we also need to understand that team can be dedicated, team can be part-time, team is basically going to be engaged face-to-face, or team is going to be engaged virtual. So I need to devise the strategies based on each involvement and each type of the teams. Another important aspect is that when we are defining the overall project, when my team is going to capture the requirement, we need to understand that what are the requirements that we are going to capture, what are the capabilities and conditions that project should have, and when we are going to capture the requirement, it is the job of a business expert, business analyst, domain expert, and they are going to capture the requirement and document into this requirement document or requirement traceability document. Ideally, when we go and capture the requirement, we only talk about technical requirements, but we need to list down business requirements, why we are doing it, and we record these business requirement, or we can get this business requirement from project charter purpose heading. Then stakeholder requirement. Stakeholder requirement means their needs, expectation, wish list and assumption. Then project functional requirement or technical requirement, which we mostly capture. Project requirement. When I say project requirement, it means, let's suppose I'm doing this training, I need a counter, I need a laptop for presentation outline, I need 2 cameras, I need 5 lights, right? So these are the project requirements, so that you have this experience or this product. Then project transition requirement. What are the condition and capabilities that end user must have so that they can use the product? So you must have a stable internet to watch these videos on any channel that I'm going to put on. And then we have the quality requirement. Quality requirement means subjective quality and objective quality. Subjective quality is in terms of the team, like the team experience, team knowledge, team certification, like project manager should be PMP. And objective quality requirement means the threshold of the quality. Let's suppose if I am building a mobile phone, what is the battery duration of mobile? That is the objective quality requirement. Once we understand these requirements, we are going to get the customer agreement, finalize the requirement, and then based on the requirement document or requirement traceability document, we are going to finalize our scope statement. Our project is going to be done based on scope statement, not on requirement document. So scope statement is a document which talks about what is in scope, that what we are going to deliver, what is out of scope, that what we are not going to deliver. And then we can also talk about acceptance criteria, that what are the tests and conditions that a customer is going to apply and accept and reject our deliverables. Once we have the scope statement, then we need to see how we are going to manage the changes in the project. As a project manager, my job is to process the change rather than making the decision about the change. The first level of change management process or change control board is the sponsor. Whenever there is a new requirement or a specification change comes in, we need to talk to the sponsor, and based on the capability impact or the impact on a project scope and other baselines, we can take it to the different levels. As a project manager, whenever there is a change, I will record the change into change log. I will work with the team to identify and assess the impact of the change. I will develop multiple options or minimum 3 options for the change implementation for management. Then I will submit the change to the change control board. Change control board will review the change and options. Change control board will make a decision about change, and this decision can be do this change now, we will do the change but later, and we are not going to do the change. Whatever the decision of the management or CCB board is, project manager will update the change log, define or refine the project baselines, and then manage the expectation of our team. When we are going to manage the project, we can also need to do procurement in a project. Generally, when we talk about procurement means buyer or seller. In the context of project management, we always be a buyer. As a project manager, we are always a buyer in terms of the procurement. Mostly project manager coordinate with the organization procurement department to do the procurement of the project related deliveries. When we talk about the procurement, we need to understand what is our procurement strategy, what is the scope that we are going to deliver, what is our make or buy analysis result and make or buy decision, how we are going to perform procurement based on procurement management plan, and what are our scope that we are going to outsource. When we are going to talk about the procurement, we develop generally either request for proposal, where we talk about the prospective vendor should submit the plan. Either we can go for request for quotation when we know what we are going to get and what are the items and quantities and qualities, and maybe we can go for RFI when we want to know more about the product. Generally, when we float the tender and RFP, we may get requests from prospective vendors to explain the requirements in more detail, so we can, rather than explaining every individual vendor, we can go and hold a bidder conference meeting in which we talk about the overall requirements and concerns and give the answer to all the prospective vendors. Once we got the multiple proposals, we will evaluate proposals based on the selection criteria. We will perform negotiation and award the contract to a vendor. Once we award the contract to a vendor, then we will do and manage the procurement. We will inspect the deliveries that we got from the vendor. We will perform audit of procurement, that how we are doing procurement in a project, and we can also manage claim management, that if there is a claim from the vendor side or from our side, that how we are going to handling it. Then another important element is that as a project manager, I will be measuring the progress of a project throughout the project. Generally, we talk about the performance measure in terms of the cost and schedule, but we can also use cost, schedule and scope perspective. Mostly our performance is based on lagging indicators. Lagging indicator means what has happened previously, but we also need to see our leading indicator, that what is remaining and how we are going to deliver the project. The important tool that we can use in this perspective is earned value management. Earned value management helps us to identify both lagging and leading indicators, and it gives us the status of cost, schedule and scope in terms of the cost. So when we talk about earned value management, it talks about three core variables. One is planned value, or the previous name of planned value is budgeted cost of work schedule. The second is actual cost or actual cost of work performed. The third is earned value or budgeted cost of work performed. Based on these three variables, I can go and calculate schedule variance and cost variance. The formula of schedule variance is SV equals to earned value minus planned value. We can also go for cost variance. The formula for cost variance is CV equals to earned value minus actual cost. It will give us the values of our project. If the CV or SV is 0, it means we are on track. If CV or SV are positive, it means we are ahead of time or under budget. If CV or SV are negative, it means we are behind schedule or over budget. We can also see these numbers in terms of percentages by using schedule performance index or cost performance index. Schedule performance index is SPI equals to earned value divided by planned value, and cost performance index CPI is equals to EV divided by AC. When we talk about the number, if CPI or SPI is 1, it means we are on track. If CPI or SPI is greater than 1, like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, it means we are ahead of a schedule or under budget. If SPI or CPI is less than 1.8, 0.7, it means we are over budget or behind schedule. These are the status that we got in terms of the lagging indicators, that where we stand. We also calculate the leading indicators, or we can forecast our project. When we started the project, that project budget is also referred as cost baseline or budget at completion. But based on the project status, we need to calculate the current budget, and that budget is referred as estimate at complete or EAC. And we can calculate estimate based on, or estimate at complete based on typical or atypical. Atypical is based on budgeted rate, whatever initial rate we set at the time of planning. If that is still valid, then we are going to calculate new budget based on atypical or budgeted rate, and the formula is EAC equals to BAC plus AC minus EV. And if our initial rate is going to be changed based on inflation, dollar inflation, market value, then we can say we are going to calculate new budget based on typical or at present CPI, and the formula of EAC is EAC equals to BAC divided by CPI. But that is the total budget. We already have done some work and we are measuring the progress in between. In that perspective, we can look at the ETC, estimate to complete. What is the amount that we require to deliver the remaining work? And the formula for ETC is equals to EAC minus AC. And if I want to see what is the variance of overall project budget till now, then we can use variance at complete, and the formula is VAC equals to BAC minus EAC. So these calculations will help you to see where your project stands right now and how much more money or time is required to deliver the remaining project work. Then finally, if our project is completed, we can go for the project closure. When we talk about closure, closure is for both project and phase when we talk about the closing process group, and we need to differentiate the project closure versus project administrative closure. Project closure means handing over the project to the customer, gaining their feedback and closing the project financially. But when we talk about the administrative closure, it means closing or dealing all the claims, doing the performance assessment of the team, indexing and archiving the records. When we talk about the closure, it's not necessary that every time my project is going to be closed successfully. Project can be closed successfully, or we may have a mid-project closure. To understand that, we can use the Cybex book concept, where it talks about that we have 4 types of closure. One is extinction, where it is going to be closed successfully. Then starvation, project is closed due to fund shortage. Integration, the project is closed because the resources are moved to other projects. And addition, that project becomes an operation and we are continuously doing it. So we need to see what is the project closure reason, and then we can go for the closure. Generally, when we talk about closure activities that project manager performs during the project closure, they are finalizing or reviewing that all the work that is being required is done and accepted in each phase, and we are going to start the project closure phase. Then transitioning the product and service to the customer, gaining the customer or user final feedback. Finally, closing the project financially, indexing and archiving the records, and again finalizing the lesson learned documents. And the last activity is releasing the resources. All these activities will help us to close the project that we are going to manage as a predictive project manager. I hope you enjoyed the journey of leading the complex project through predictive project management. Thank you.